All right, welcome back for another installment of the batch program tutorials. In this case, we'll go through the experimental features. So the experimental features you can find under the general settings and enable the experimental functions. These settings pertain to the buttons that will show up on the left side here. This will just go through top to bottom here. Reference table. You may have seen in some of the other videos that in the drawings, if I open these things up, there was another item on the title block called reference, and it was populated with values. This I use as kind of a reverse BOM, where an assembly has parts beneath it, but a part you don't necessarily know which assembly it's part of. And so these are references that I've created through that reference table. It tells you which assemblies these parts belong to. So the way that works is the reference table will create iProperties with a reference number on them, and it will filter them according to the drawing numbers you choose. So obviously you don't want your nuts and bolts to be referenced. So we need to filter the part numbers that it's looking for. And so in my case, my part numbers all follow the form 4 digits dash 2 digits dash 4 digits. And so you type in just a regular part number, and it'll spit out the format. So if your part number was ABC and then 255A, and that's you always followed that kind of format. You'd add that, and now it will recognize 3 letters, a dash, 3 numbers, and a letter will recognize as a part. If you don't have your part listed or your format listed here, it will assume that you don't want to record that reference. So with that, I will go back and show you kind of how it works. So with these buttons here, they will operate on the assembly and part drawings. They aren't necessarily related to these ones. So we will go through this assembly, and it will find all these parts, and it will roll them up into their parent. So we'll just say update ref table, overwrite references, sure, and we are done. You won't really see any changes because I had just recently done that, but the references are now here. These are in the iProperties that I had talked about. So now we have 7 or 8 references, because if you remember in the settings menu, I had, let's try that again. In the settings menu, I had a maximum of 8 references. You can choose whatever you'd like. I don't recall if there's a maximum to it or not, but in my case I only have room for a few, and the title block here just pulls these iProperty numbers. That's how that is populated. Find it useful? Great. You don't find it useful? Don't use it. That's fine by me. So moving on to the next feature. So our settings, what do we have? Reference rename parts. This one has been giving me a lot of grief. I've pretty much got it now. You can rename parts if you have something like a vault, but I also find vault is really tedious. So I made this to combat that. This purchase parts folder is just a way to designate what it will see as a purchase part and what it won't. So if you have all your purchase parts in a folder called, we buy these, you just click that and say, we buy, I can type. So any part that's got a folder structure with these text in it, it'll assume it's a purchase part. That's pretty much, incidentally, you can give explanations on all these things. So the rename function, we'll go through, we'll just open up our assembly, and again, it'll operate on the assembly itself. We'll say rename parts. You may get a warning about thumbnails. All that is a script that it needs to add to Inventor so that it can pull the thumbnails from the assemblies and place them into the spreadsheet.